Hey everyone, welcome back to Daily Devotions. Pastor Steve here with you in Exodus chapter 10. And we've seen more and more who God is. His power, his authority, his rescue of his people. But it just seems like they're just right in the midst of that rescue. But as it's taking time, I just want you to remember that they are severely oppressed. They're trying to find their own straw to make their brick. We've kind of lost sight of that a little bit when we go into the plagues, that their oppression continues to go on. And this kind of sentiment of what we talked about in Revelation before in these videos, it's kind of like these people are saying, how long? How long, O Lord, until you rescue us, until you bring us up, until you fulfill your promises? And I know you've probably been there too, of being able to say, how long do I have to sit in what I'm sitting in until the Lord delivers, until the Lord rescues, until the Lord shows me the other side? And one of the incredible phrases, sites of Scripture just always continually unravels is being able to say, God does place on his people the understanding and actually the challenge of patient endurance. Patient endurance. And I know one of those favorite scriptures for people is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, right? Being able to say, lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways trust. Trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding. And that trust actually produces that patient endurance, that I can handle what I'm going through right now, what I'm sitting in right now, because of the promises of God, of who God is, the nature of God, the characteristics of God, of what I know of God. I can sit in this and be patient and endure because I know who God is. And I know that he's a God that cares. And I know he's a God that rescues. And I know he's a God that has plans for me, plans to prosper me, not to harm me. I know that of my God. And so while we're experiencing these plagues with the Israelites, not necessarily experiencing like they were, they see that it's not touching them. And so there's this promise, there's this sentiment towards them of saying, okay, God's looking after us. But he's also showing the Egyptians who he is. So we have the 8th and 9th plagues here in chapter 10, and I want to walk with you through those. Once again, showing his authority, showing his control, showing who he is as God overall. And so as we get to see here, this 8th plague, plague of locusts, is a direct attack on the god Seth, the Egyptian god of Seth. And he is the god of storms and disorder. He's a god of storms and disorder. And what we get to see here is the locusts are falling out of the sky. It's like a storm of locusts. He should be able to control this, but he can't because this is of God. Chapter 10, verse 1. Then the Lord said to Moses, go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his officials, so they may perform these miraculous signs of mine among them, that you may tell your children and grandchildren how I dealt harshly with the Egyptians and how I performed my signs among them, and that you may know that I am the Lord. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said to him, this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go so that they may worship me. If you refuse to let them go, I will bring locusts into your country tomorrow. They will cover the face of the ground so that it cannot be seen. They will devour what little you have left after the hail, including every tree that is growing in your fields. They will fill your houses and those of all your officials and all the Egyptians, something neither your fathers nor your forefathers have ever seen from the day they settled in this land till now. Then Moses turned and left Pharaoh. If you actually look into history, there is a historical thing that happens every so often over in Africa. And we just had this last year, I think it was, the swarms of locusts. These mile-long swarms. You can look it up. Just put swarms of locusts in Google. And they had these miles of locusts that would visit and they would settle into these regions and absolutely devastate them. It was like this like this cloud of locusts that come in and just devour fields, devour trees, devour flowers. They just wreak havoc on the land. He's saying here, You've maybe experienced those miles, but this is going to be so much more thick and so much more than what your forefathers or your fathers have experienced. They say it happens like every 7 to 10 years, these swarms of locusts for some reason. Verse 7, Pharaoh's officials said to him, "How long will this man be a snare to us? Let the people go so that they may worship the Lord their God. Do you not realize that Egypt is ruined?" Then Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh. "Go, worship the Lord your God," he said. "But just who will be going?" Moses answered, "We will go with our young and old, with our sons and daughters, and with our flocks and herds, because we are to celebrate a festival to the Lord." They need their flocks and herds. They need their livestock because of the sacrifice that they'll give to the Lord. And Pharaoh said, "The Lord be with you, if I let you go along with your women and children. Clearly you are bent on evil. No? Have only the men go and worship the Lord, since that's what you have been asking for." Then Moses and Aaron were driven out of Pharaoh's presence. And the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over Egypt so that locusts will swarm over the land and devour everything growing in the fields, everything left by the hail." So Moses stretched out his hand over Egypt, and the Lord made an east wind blow across the land all that day and all that night. By morning the wind had brought the locusts. They invaded all Egypt and settled down in every area of the country in great numbers. Never before had there been such a plague of locusts, nor will there ever be again. They covered all the ground until it was black. They devoured all that was left after the hail, everything growing in the fields and the fruit on the trees. Nothing green remained on tree or plant in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Now forgive my sin once more and pray to the Lord your God to take this deadly plague away from me." I want you to really catch that real quickly in verse 17. We get to see the nature and the characteristic of Pharaoh. Take this plague away from me. It's making me uncomfortable. It's having an effect on me. It's having an effect on my powers. It's having an effect on my authority. I've sinned against your God. So he's confessing, but he's still selfish. He's going to be all the way selfish until that last plague. Verse 18, it says, Moses then left Pharaoh and prayed to the Lord, and the Lord changed the wind to a very strong west wind, which caught up the locusts and carried them into the Red Sea. Not a locust was left anywhere in Egypt, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go. Where did they go? They went into the Red Sea. So throughout Scripture, we're going to see that locust and the chariot and the rider are really denoted as evil spirits and enemies of God. We get to see that here. The locusts are thrown into the Red Sea. The horses and chariots that come a little bit later in these chapters are going to be thrown into the Red Sea. There's not an opposition against God that has any kind of power and authority against him. He's so much more than that. But what he's showing Egypt, he's saying, I am actually the God. Seth wasn't the God, right? As we get to see here in this next play, Ra, the Egyptian god of sun, of light, right? Ra is not the God that provides for you. I am the God that always provides. Verse 21, a direct attack at Ra, the god of sun, the Egypt god of sun. Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand toward the sky so that darkness will spread over Egypt, darkness that can be felt. So he's not checking with Pharaoh on this. He's just doing this, right? Because he knows his heart is hardened. So Moses stretched out his hand toward the sky, and total darkness covered all Egypt for 3 days. No one could see anyone else or leave his place for 3 days. Yet all Israelites had light in the places where they lived. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and said, Go, worship the Lord. Even your women and children may go with you. Only leave your flocks and herds behind. But Moses said, You must allow us to have sacrifices and burnt offerings to present to the Lord our God. Our livestock too must go with us. Not a hoof is to be left behind. We have to use some of them in worshiping the Lord our God. And until we get there, we will know what we are. Until we get there, we will not know what we are to use to worship the Lord. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he was not willing to let them go. Pharaoh said to Moses, Get out of my sight. Well, it probably can't see him anyways, it's so dark. Make sure you do not appear before me again. The day you see my face, you will die. Just as you say, Moses replied, I will never appear before you again. threatened death, but it just so happens that it's crouching at Pharaoh's door. This last plague, as you know, the plague of the firstborn, is a direct attack, and we'll get into that next video. It's a direct attack on Pharaoh, the god of Egypt, the power of Egypt. But I'll leave that for next video. Just take a look at who God is in the plagues 8 and 9. God brings about calamity for Egypt, but safe haven for Israel. God is a God who provides. Maybe not in our timing, as we talked at the beginning of this video. Maybe it's something that he wants us to endure. He wants us to be patient in. But it shouldn't change our view of who our God is. Our God provides. Our God cares. Our God is always in the right time. Have a blessed day knowing who our God is and how he continues to pursue you as you walk by faith. Have a blessed day.